So, excuse me because I got to read this a little bit because I don't remember all the facts, but since 1981 or 1891, the News of Highlands, the Governor Highland Falls area. It was located in Orange County. What? It was a weekly newspaper. In 1899, two brothers from Ohio founded the paper. They were the Tripp brothers. They published the paper until 1910. And when the older brother died, and then the younger brother continued to 1924. Then he passed away, and then in the 1900s, this Samuel Carleton came to work for the paper, and then he published the paper till 1937, and then this Leroy McCormick took it over until 1957.
Wait, pause. Who remembers Leroy McCormick? Oh wow. Okay.
Was his son Cliff?
Yes. Okay. And in 1986, he named his son Cliff.
No.
One of the four children. Was it?
I think that year's wrong.
Right.
Because by '86, Fred was.
Well, then, yeah. Published a newspaper. Fred came in 1973. He was here as a reporter since 1952.
Okay. There you go.
And then Mary Jane Pitt replaced Fred Brennan as the editor after working in the newspaper from 1988.
July 5th, 1988.
How do you know?
I remember.
And today the newspaper is still owned by Mrs. Aristoff. Joe Gill, probably all remember Joe Gill. He managed the paper. He started in 1973. He was the general manager until March of 2019 when I took over. And then at the same time we've been running that in the Cornwall Local. And Mary Jane used to be the editor of just the News of the Highlands, and we had an editor of the Cornwall Local who retired, I guess last August maybe, or 2 August.
Last July. Yep, July 1st.
July 1st, and then Mary Jane took over, and she is the face of news in both communities.
So,
Is that Jason Kaplan?
no, that's
No,
Ken Cashman.
Okay.
And a fun fact is that just today, so Ken Cashman still proofreads for us.
Yeah.
Just today, Ken Cashman sent me an email that said, you need to check your story on the town budget on the front page of the news. And I said, okay, I sent it to the comptroller and the supervisor, they looked at it, no problem. So I had the tax rate going up, I think it was $22.71 in Fort Montgomery per $1,000 of assessed value, which would make that a $20,000 increase. A lot of people would have come to the public hearing on Monday. I mean, I think I kind of would have been doing community service. But Ken Cashman saw it, I called Kelly, and we were able to fix that mistake before it goes out in tomorrow's paper. So thank you, Ken Cashman. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No problem. I feel bad I can't project this because there's some good graphics, but basically, there's over 65 million Americans live in a community with no newspaper. So across the country. So when you think about that, in a county that has no local news. So we're pretty lucky that here in these small communities that we do have a local news source. And so it causes a lot of issues in those communities because really there's not a source of clear and concise news which Mary Jane's able to provide. I always tell people, everyone says, oh, we don't read that paper until we write something that they disagree with. And then
Amazingly
we hear it, right? And that's the only time we ever get, we get a lot of complaints. Whether you don't get your newspaper on time, or whether Mary Jane got something slightly wrong, or misinterpreted, or feel that she has a political bias one way or the other, when I can assure you that most of the time the article's written just from the point of view of what people said, and Mary Jane's just regurgitating that her way, and really there's very little editorializing, but they tend to read between the lines to find flaws with everything.
A lot of people say things
Yes.
thinking the way they mean it in their head, but it doesn't always come out that way in words. And then when I write what they said, but that's not what I said. And I say, but that is what you said, but that's not what I meant. And I'm like, oh.
So probably YouTube and the actual recordings of the meeting is one of the best things that could ever.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So basically we're still there. Over the last 15 years, the New York the country has lost 1/4 of its local newspapers. That's 2,100 publications, including 70 daily newspapers and more than 2,000 weekly papers have closed over the last 15 years, which is a huge, and that statistic is from 4 years ago. So it's substantial more that closed, and we know three in our local community have closed in the last
I
year
used to
and
get
a half.
to Centennial, that closed
Right.
about 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. I think the one of the Garrison papers is about ready to close, that has it already, and, the one out of Highland Mills.
Does anyone get the Times Herald Record still?
Only online.
They don't deliver.
Yeah, they don't even bother to come here anymore, so.
No.
Good.
So,
You give editorials.
A few years ago at the Association of Towns, Chuck Schumer talked about, I'm sure you know the name of some company that's gobbling up newspapers around America and doing whatever they're doing with them. So the small papers like yours, I mean, I get all my information from the machine at the library, and when I die, I'm gonna leave the library enough money to get another one, the microfilm machine.
yeah,
So-
they actually called me last week to see if we digitalized all the newspapers. And they said we can barely afford to print the newspapers, so we haven't yet, but I know we might help too, to try to get a new, or the machine fixed, right? It's not working so well, the microfiche, right? It's still on microfiche.
Yeah.
But the Historical Society has two that work,
Okay,
and I offered to the library that if anybody comes in and wants to look at the news of the Highlands, to contact the Historical
Oh,
Society. Because we also have the complete set from 1891
yeah.
to when the microfilming stopped. And so that's a fabulous resource for the town. Yeah.
And we have, we do, Mary Jane brought some of the books from the Historical Society, right? They live there. They, every year, I think we actually stopped, I gotta be honest, we stopped doing the last 2 years making these books because they're expensive, and we have everything now electronically. We have PDFs of all the newspapers that we create, so it's sort of like not cost effective, and they're a lot easier to search.
Which actually, we should probably send to, the historian's office.
Yeah, we should.
That would be
Every
a good
week,
idea.
so she has
We
access to
should,
that.
yeah.
That would
we
be
should.
amazing, thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to remind me to talk to Jason.
Well, I can just
about
give her
that.
the password to.
Yeah, they download them, right? But yeah, so in the Historical Society are these fine books that you can actually see the newspaper from. Like, for example, I think there's an ad from, what's this, 1971, where you can get 10 pounds of ice for 50 cents. It's pretty cool just from the ad perspective. But it's a significant issue.
I brought 1907, 1971, and 1994 with me today. I'm sorry, Ronnie, I ripped a tiny little bit of one of the pages, because you can barely touch them anymore, because they're disintegrating. They're just, it's sad, but, and there's no way to get that back. There's no electronic
Right.
version.
No
I mean,
version.
if they microfilm them, whatever the right word is, that's great, because one
Right.
bad moment and those are long gone. Yeah, scanning them, yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't know if it's done as often, but remember when we would publish the paper from 1920, 1906, and it would be.
Like run a page within the paper.
We did every year.
Oh, you mean the year in review?
Yes.
Oh,
But
yes.
you do it in the first page, newspaper from the 1920s, and the front page, that was on the.
Oh, I think we're talking about two different things. I was thinking you meant the past year in review. That's what we used, okay, so that I still do. But they would run an actual, like, an old front page? Oh, neat. We did that when we turned 100, I remember. We put out a whole special section with
I have a
old
couple of
ads
the
and stuff.
papers, I don't know,
Neat.
I can't remember what, the occasion was that you were writing it, but one of the papers said, I think it was in the 20s, in one of the areas, it said, the Italians are coming up from the city and buying everything up in Schneider Avenue, the beautiful houses on Schneider Avenue. And it
Those
was,
Italians.
it had to be when they were just built, but you did it, I thought you 1920. Does anybody else remember it?
It was
have
day
some.
by day, January of the prior year, every single day until December 31st.
Right, yeah, those are two separate things, but yes, on both ends, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that we try to do, so we're always welcome to suggestions, what would make you guys more interested in the paper, what we could do to improve it. So if any of you guys wanted to share anything with us, since my PowerPoint isn't working out so great, we'd love to hear you guys. I could talk to you about the decline in advertising that I have a slide on and all our other issues, but I think I'd much rather focus on what the community would like to see to help us improve.
Matt's number one reason to not want to only go online stems from a story he told us the very first day he started working with us. Remember?
Yeah, so so my mom, when I got married, my mom gave me a box of like treasures, like different things, and like in that was like photos of when I was a kid and in the paper and different things like that. And I talked to Mary Jane and our staff about it all the time. So a little bit about me. I have no background in newspaper. I've been running this for 5 years. I think we've done pretty good. I have a little business background and I have various other things in business and so forth I do. So I was like, how hard can it be to run a newspaper? I think we've been very successful at it, but there's a lot of challenges. And so one of my things is it's very important to me that we keep the local news of these two communities. I spent 20 years in Fort Montgomery. I've lived in Cornwall for 5 years. So I have ties to both communities. I feel it's important to keep news in both communities. And I keep going back, as Mary Jane said, with that original story, where it's like, that was really a cool thing that I actually have. I tell people that all the time. And, unfortunately, you look around, there's, no one here is under 20, maybe a few in your 30s, but, a pretty young crowd, but we really need to figure out ways to reach the next generation, or the younger generation of people, and get them more interested in reading the paper. And I joke all the time with my wife, we always have a copy of both newspapers in the house, because obviously they're there. And we'll have people over on a Friday night, and every single time that paper's out on my kitchen counter, someone will open it up and go through it, and it always spurs conversation, and they'll have discussions, and I always ask them, hey, you guys subscribe to the paper? And they never do. So usually I then buy them a subscription, give them a subscription, and it starts appearing. Because I think there's a lot of, I think that gets lost. And unfortunately, what we struggle with is how to reach and make it relevant. So, Bobby, I know, you say, oh, gas, we won't have a printed version anymore. But in order for us to have a printed version, we have to come up with a way to fund a printed version, right? And the printing costs, when I first started, were around $500 to $600 a week to put that paper out. Now we run $1,100 or $1,200 a week. So to put that in perspective, a full page ad in the paper right now, I think, is around $1,100, right? And we're lucky if we get one full page ad a week, sometimes a month. On top of that, we have Mary Jane salary, we have an office manager, Bobby, we have 2 part-time people who deal with selling ads and subscriptions, we have a graphics guy, Jay Leroy, and then we have Jason Kaplan, who's also a reporter. And with that small staff, like Mary Jane said, we're able to put a 28-page paper out this week and get relevant news from 4 different town or village boards, zoning. You think about all the different things that happen in this community. Thank God that meetings are recorded, and Mary Jane can sit in front of her computer sometimes when she's not in the meetings in person and capture that information, or Jason Kaplan can. But it's a Herculean effort when you think about all the news that happens in this community. And then we get scolded for the things we miss. And we also try to be at all the different children's events, the sporting events at schools, or at least get feedback from them. And Mary Jane struggles with the coaches, right? Trying to get a score from a game, or who these kids' pictures, and so forth. God forbid you get the name wrong, right?
I got one wrong last week.
We get scolded.
Right from the mom.
Yeah. Maybe when
Well,
you're.
she's reading it.
She is,
We
you
love
are
the
right.
paper. We love
You're
the
absolutely
paper.
right.
The kids, everybody's in it.
And that is Matt's whole point, that you can't cut out a Facebook post and hang it on your refrigerator.
Right.
And you can't cut out a tweet and put it in a baby book. And you can't, your kid on the honor roll, That's not online anywhere. And I think that's Matt's point with the box his mom gave him when he got married.
Right.
Digital is great, and I love social media, and I use all sorts of digital platforms. But I got out a scrapbook the other day, my girls wanted to see something, and, there was when September 11th happened, there was a ceremony at Memorial Park, and the Girl Scouts came, and it was, all the little, Amanda was right there by Hannah, and all the Girl Scouts at this ceremony, and I had the pictures, I cut them out, and now granted, Hannah, my youngest, is 25, her baby book stops when she was in, 2nd grade, because I just don't have much time, and that picture was one of the last things, but I cut it out, and I kept it, and I'm hopeful that young moms still do, even if I spelled their kid's name wrong, maybe
Right.
cut out the correction the next week and tape it on and then stick it in the baby book.
The irony of this misspelled name was Mary Jane got it from the record,
Yeah,
who misspelled it.
that's what I get for trusting the record.
She plagiarized the story, no. It's, that's,
Yeah, it's a concern.
it is.
So those signs that Ronnie brought right behind Matt there, those are from our office. Everyone remembers where our office was. It's been actually totally empty since we left. Patrick Kelly did so much work in there, it's amazing. He turned it into like a little cafe type place, but then there's no second exit, so he couldn't ever open it. Yeah, he made it kind of beautiful
Really nice.
to no avail, just
He was
sitting
gonna
empty.
call it the bunker,
The bump
and I
out.
would liken it to the Smash Club. Ever watch the show Full House with Uncle Jesse's Smash Club?
Where they,
It was gonna be something like that, where
Yeah.
local performers could perform. He put a lot of work into
he
that.
did, and I mean, if I don't know if you all remember it, it was just a dungeon. I mean, I worked in that dungeon for 20 years, and it was either too cold or too hot or wet.
Only a million pieces of paper in
Oh,
there.
when I first started working at the News of the Highlands, now I do every single thing for every issue of the News of the Highlands on a laptop this size. But if you remember, like if you walk with me in there was Marge Lapani,
Mhm.
Trisha Mahan, and then Sandy Reynolds, different receptionists. And I was over in that corner on like a 1935 typewriter for the longest time, then finally I got an electric one. And Fred and his pipe, and 2 ad people over here, and then around the corner were Trudy McCabe and Dot Weber, did all the typesetting. And then in the back, there were 2 or 3 people who used wax strips of paper to lay out on the pages, and then it literally went to Middletown, I think, and went on a printing press.
Wow.
And around the corner was Fred's, there were 2 dark rooms. I don't remember why there were 2 dark rooms. John, do you remember why he had 2 different dark rooms?
I'm not
One was
telling
probably for the color.
There was no color at all back then.
Panky went.
Oh.
And then way in the back was all those books that are now in the
Right,
Historical
right.
Society, and file cabinets and file cabinets and file cabinets of pictures.
Yeah.
And then now it's only digital. Oh, I brought this with me. I went to a middle school, West Point Middle School not too long ago to do a little presentation on journalism, and I held this up and asked them if they knew what it was. And one kid.
Yeah.
One kid.
New.
One kid.
Amazing.
I found this, after I moved out of the office into home. I've kept it for posterity. I don't know, I don't know if anyone has digital, has film
Still can,
cameras
you can
anymore.
mail them away to get them developed.
Okay, but I don't know if I have a camera to fit it. I might have to look.
I do,
I've
so.
probably killed it now by opening it. But we,
And
all
we
the,
printed the paper in Cornwall for a lot of years. too.
oh, they had a
Yeah,
printing press back at the Cornwall Local.
Local,
I
yeah.
remember that.
And, I think probably 10 years ago, they sold that building and they tore it down and it became a house.
That's the one up by the ambulance corps?
Yeah.
Cause I was looking for it the other day, and I'm like, I don't.
It's a-
Yeah,
yeah,
it
it's a
got
house
torn
now.
down, it's a house now.
But if you
It's like a
look at
keyhole
these
lot. There's a
old
house
books,
back there.
until 2000-ish, Fred printed, and people before him, went back in a dark room and printed every one of these pictures. When I look through the old books, I see a lot of pictures of like people with eyes closed and stuff, because you only had, film was expensive even then, so you only took a couple pictures, and then you got what you got and used the best one. Now I can, and actually half the time I just use my phone, and I can pick the best one, and actually sometimes if I don't have a best one, my girls edit it for me, like right on my phone, and then I put it in the paper. But it's also made, digital photography has made my job a lot easier because so many people take pictures now of everything. I mean,
But it's also made it harder, because a lot of times we'll have a good, picture of something and, it's already been circulated on social media 500 times.
Yeah.
And so, the other day, I was at the Cornwall boys sectional soccer game, right? And then, it was over. By the time I got home, there was more pictures than I took for Mary Jane to put in the paper on social media. 15 of them are better than mine, because I'm taking it from the stands with an iPhone, and, it's a challenge. So, we struggle with that. Like, it's really hard for us to get an original scoop or original content on something. We might get it a little more right, we might get the names better, but there's, and we've got a lot of help with local photographers who create a work and send us our pictures, sports photographers, send us the pictures and stuff. But it's a challenge, like Mary Jane always says, like, this picture's been circulated 800 times.
but only mine, they can cut out of a newspaper and put it in the baby book.
Right. But they do, like, the other thing that frustrates me to no end, is when people take, like, if we have a good story and they'll take a picture of our story and put it on Facebook. I tell the local politicians all the time when they do that, I really wish you guys would just say, hey, there's a good article in News of Highlands, go buy it. Go support them and buy it, right?
I've done that a few times.
Yeah, it's like, it's good, because then people will come and buy it, but then, in Cornwall, the guy, he loves to do that all the time. He'll take a picture of the article and, the whole story. Well, it just came out today, now it's up there, but no one's gonna go buy it, right, for $1, so that's frustrating. And I get mad at the coffee shops because they have a sticky note, the one in Cornwall particularly, it has a sticky note above it, says if you, read a paper here, please return it. So there's 15 papers, they've all been read 500 times and they're returned. I keep asking the guy, just change it to, hey, if you read the paper, make a donation, you really return it.
So when we started, Agnes said, a lot has changed through the years. Now, hold up one of these papers for me.
Yeah.
If you look at this 1971 front page though, and look at last week's News of Highlands front page, not that much has changed really. It has changed, but it hasn't changed.
Just the color.
The color, honestly, truthfully, and Richie Sullivan probably could speak to this.
Masthead is different.
We should go back to the old masthead, right? That'd be pretty cool.
But the stories are very similar. School district fighting for aid. Community wants some property back from West Point. There was an election picture in here, and one of the, I won't find it now. But it was still very relevant, names. So it's changed, but it hasn't changed. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
The ads have changed, right?
Well, the ads have changed a bit. For instance, at IGA on May 27th, 1971, a 1-pint, 12-ounce jar of dill pickles was 39 cents.
Oh, wow.
I don't think you could find that deal right now. I don't know what, picnic plates, must be paper plates, 59 cents. Marshmallows, 25 cents. Oranges were 10 for 69 cents.
Does that say Grand Union?
That's IGA. Let's see if Grand Union has one. So Shorter's Men's Shop is another ad. Highland Falls Federal Savings and Loan, William T. Hogan Funeral Home, they still advertise every single week, and it's the same size ad from 1971. Let's see who else. Car dealerships, we don't have many of those anymore. What is that? Oh, that's a West Point Motors. Which one was that?
West Point Motors.
West Point
Is that
Motors.
up with the town highway garage yet?
Yes.
And from our understanding, even the local papers here are gonna go that same way, where what's happening is the trucks in Cornwall, some of the post offices, I think it's gonna happen here in Cornwall, Government, Highland Falls, really, they don't leave from the local post offices anymore, they load in Newburgh at a regional distribution center and distribute from there. So, in Cornwall, there's like 3 trucks trucks that left the Cornwall post office every day. We would deliver them before the trucks would go, they'd get on those trucks and go out. Now, what's happening is they go to or they go out as other distribution centers, so now we go distribute there. And we pay more for postage now, 20%. So that's, you know,
Can't make that
distribution
happen.
is, yeah.
I can't make that happen.
Yeah.
Who's had their picture in the paper? Lisa's on the front page this week. Ronnie's on page 3 this
I
week.
think everybody's had their picture in the paper.
Richie Sullivan is in the budget story on page 1 this week. And I think that your anniversary is on page 2 in the bulletin board. Gunz's, I think you're clear. Doris, the vision meeting, but I didn't get there today, and I apologize for that. The 28-page paper, it almost killed me. Stella, you're in a picture, you're on page, you're in the Rotary Club giving out dictionaries, yes. Agnes, you're in paper this week for the support group on Friday mornings. Bobby, I
It's a
don't
bake
know,
sale in front of the library.
Bobby and Margaret McDonald
kids are
might
in
be
the
the only
paper.
two in the Gunzes that I don't have.
And Eleanor Lavelle's kids 30 years ago, how you do that?
Yeah,
That, somebody is in that, for those from the 10,
10, 20, 30.
10,
I just had
20,
Siobhan not too long ago on the dean's list, actually, I recall that was a couple weeks ago. So Margaret and Bobby and Gunzes, I'm sorry, I don't have you in this week's paper.
Just have to do something there.
Mary Jane did tell me
Yeah, do
something.
something crazy right now.
My grandkids love
Mary Jane did confess though to me this morning about something that she does that I didn't quite know she does, but I sort of have to say I agree with it. She tends to, like, sometimes she takes out the bad thing, like, you know, if someone messed up 30 years ago and we ended up in the paper and it, you know, comes up on our cycle, she like sometimes edits.
I don't ever put them in, but my reporter in Cornwall sometimes will put them in the same column in the Cornwall Local. And I think if you shoplifted 30 years ago, or if,
Right.
you know, if you
Yeah.
ran over somebody's dog 20 years ago and did your time or whatever, I just don't feel like 20, 30 years later, I need to bring that up again. I
agree with you.
there's just no reason. Joe Gill always used to tell me, I Mary Janed it, which means I, you know, made it nice, cause, I don't know, I just don't like controversy. I'm not gonna controversy.
It's truth.
But,
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I did just, I want to use you just as a real quick, and I know we're running out of time, cause you're the choir, you know, the preaching to the choir thing. What can we do better? Somebody tell me, what can we do better? How can I attract the young moms and dads?
Even last night on Main Street.
I guess it is kind of a $1 million question. How can you get the young moms and dads to volunteer too? How can you get them in church? How can you get them to help with the Christmas
Can
decorations?
you get one of them to start a column maybe?
A kid to start a column.
Yeah, one of the moms with little kids to start a column and talk about all the little kids as they get together.
You know what I did?
Just a thought.
That's not a bad idea, and actually, so that might even translate into the schools. I always try to get as much school pictures, they're fun pictures of, but our schools now have all new administrators.